Hello, everyone. Oh, crap. This might be a little bit too loud. This might work out. How are we doing? Good? Hello, everyone. Episode 91. Smells like Wrasslin. Another episode of Dynamite in the books. Not a very, flashy episode. Not much went on. I feel like everything has kind of drastically calmed down from last week. Last week, if you guys don't know, was that big, it feels like forever ago, but it really was, I think, only last week. Last week was the big NXT and WWE head-on in the ratings, same time slot. Everybody stacked the deck. It was NXT who won handedly in the ratings. I mean, there was once they were putting on Cena and LA Knight and all these other guys, there was no shot for AEW win, no shot at all. I mean, at that point, you were adding on from NXT's existing audience to the people who are big Raw and SmackDown fans and really follow those characters around on whatever show. There was no way. There was no way that NXT was going to lose that night. And if they didn't massively blow them out, it was going to be an abject failure. And they pretty much almost doubled Dynamite, if I'm not mistaken, or at least a solid 250,000 more viewers. I think NXT creeped a little bit closer to 1 million, whereas AEW kind of sat a little bit in like the 500,000 to 600,000 range. I had on both shows. I watched both. We talked about this last week. Yeah, man, that's just the way it goes. Tony threw everything he had at him, and it wasn't enough. But I mean, it was never going to be enough against like guys like Cena and Reigns and Rhea Ripley and all that stuff. Now, an argument could be definitely made that like they just put guys on. They put like the draws on NXT that night were guys who weren't even wrestling. Whereas AEW kind of went with a very wrestling heavy show. Like if you looked at that half hour commercial free whatever, it was just Cody talking for a majority of the time. It wasn't really any like wrestling, but if you go back on AEW, they had the, I believe it was Swerve versus Danielson was the opening match. So it didn't work out. It didn't work out for Tony. And then Tony had a meltdown the following couple of days on Twitter. I mean, I don't like the look of it. I mean, a lot of people could say, "Oh, Tony had a plan. He wanted to draw eyes to the Jay White and Penta match." So I mean, there are a lot of, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of it. I'm just not a fan of it. Not a fan of that. I wasn't a fan of the war in the beginning. Well, actually, in the beginning, when it was like still kind of sort of NXT Black and Gold, and there was still a lot of people on that roster that were like legit like Black and Gold alumni, like that was when I was most interested about what was going on in like a sense of like AEW versus NXT like facing each other, you know? But then after most of the guys went from NXT to AEW, and then they kind of neutered NXT and made it 2.0, it stopped being a war. And to me, it hasn't been a war since. Wrestling journalists obviously get a fucking kick out of it, because they pick their sides and they promote who they want to promote, and they call it real journalism, which is fucking bullshit, because we all know that there's total bias amongst the wrestling journalists. And like I said, the post-media scrum is filled with mostly bums. So it's just like, honestly, like, if you want to enjoy wrestling, you should just stay away from the journalists. Like, stick to fan podcasts and people who just want to like talk about shit. But these freaking wrestling journalists, it's just a waste of time. It's just a fucking waste of time. Damn, man, like I just feel like tonight didn't have any pop. I mean, I thought the Jay White and Penta match was pretty good. They brought back Wardlow. Wardlow still hasn't said anything. He wants to fight MJF. It doesn't make me care. The stuff going on with Adam Cole, it's kind of like run its course at least like 3 to 4 weeks ago. And I guess it's just a way to kind of keep Adam Cole on television. I'm assuming they must have filmed like 6 different episodes of this all in one day. But it's not thrilling me either. I mean, we haven't addressed the fact as to who dressed in the devil mask and attacked Jay White. We have now Roderick Strong saying he's gonna have to try and be friends with MJF. So I don't know. Like, there's just a lot of shit that's like gestating, and not a lot of payoffs at this point. So there's a lot of builds. I'm assuming, like they're gonna be building towards Full Gear. We already even saw a little bit of a build for Revolution next year, with Sting announcing that that's going to be his final match. I mean, hey, like, they're going to build to that final. I'm hoping they're going to build to that final match between now and Revolution. I would say Revolution is probably February or March of 2024. So we have less than 6 months left of Sting. I mean, that breaks my fucking heart. I fucking love Sting. Sting is one of my favorite fucking wrestlers of all time. I remember watching him on Saturdays with WCW. I remember watching him during the Monday Night Wars. I remember the sole reason I was watching Monday Night Nitro was a hope of seeing Sting come down from the rafters. And all there was just this massive build. And I've talked about this multiple times on the podcast because it's one of my favorite wrestling stories of all time, except for the way it ended, kind of, sort of. So I really liked, I would watch Sting. I would watch Monday Night Nitro just for, and what, like, I think Monday Night Nitro was like, what, like 3 hours? I was watching that whole show just waiting for a glimpse of Sting. Then he would come down from the rafters, beat the shit out of the NWO. He wouldn't say anything, but he would point his bat at Hogan, or he grabbed a sign from the crowd that says Hogan, and it was always Schiavone going, "What do you want? Why are you here?" And everyone knew it was Hogan. He wants Hogan. And then finally, Starrcade, I think it was like 97. Starrcade 97 happened. How old was I then? 97. I think I was 11 years old at the time. And they did that weird shit with like Hogan winning and then Bret Hart coming out and saying it was a fast count, but it didn't look like a fast count when it happened. They restarted the match and then Sting won. So I was just like, I just don't understand why they couldn't just have Sting win. You know, that was some of the bullshit that was going on in WCW, but like, then he won and he was talking and all this crazy shit happened. And then there was the fracture with the NWO and it became Wolfpack. Like, Sting was my entire Monday Night War. You know, I was not watching WWE at all. I was just watching Nitro. And like, then he was in Impact and I was watching him on Impact. And then he came to WWE and they fucked that up royally. And then all of a sudden, like, Sting shows up in AEW. And I was a little worried because all I had to go on was like how like old veterans came in the WWE. And I was just like, yo, this guy's just going to get his ass beat every week. I'm not going to watch this shit. And no, Sting like was wrestling matches and jumping off of balconies and getting into hardcore matches. Sting of AEW was fucking awesome. You know what I mean? No selling shit, doing the whole like hulking out bullshit and whatever. Like, and now next year, 2024, it's going to be over. Like, as a Sting fan, like, that, for me, like, that sucks. Like, I'm heartbroken about this, but, you know, I have to just, you know, it was bound to happen. And Sting had a great run, and he's a Hall of Famer, and he's a legend. And when people talk about pro wrestling, there's no way you can have a conversation that doesn't have Sting's name in it. Bona fide Hall of Famer. The guy has wrestled for every wrestling promotion known to man. And I'm gonna miss him, man. Sting is the best. I'm assuming his final match will be with Darby. I can only assume that that's going to be like I would assume, and I've been saying this for a while, that like Darby is going to be the guy to take the belt off of MJF. I feel like 2024, he's definitely like this whole face run is going to end. Like at some point in 2024, MJF is turning heel with that belt, and Darby's going to come in and he's going to win that belt, and he's going to be the new AEW World Champion. And if that's the case, then him beating Sting and now remember, Darby isn't retiring Sting. Sting is just having his last match. So like, you could have Darby win, and no one can say like, oh, Darby retired Sting. No, Darby was part of Sting's last match, so you can still keep him as a face and use that to kind of platform him to be like, all right, now it's time. It's time for him to be the guy of the company. You know what I mean? So then MJF takes a big break and he comes back and does something cool and new. But anyway, if any there is a couple things I wanted to make mention from Monday Night Raw. Raw and SmackDown the last couple of weeks have been very good. I've been very much into it. I'm liking what's going on with Drew McIntyre. I'm liking what's going on with him and Seth Rollins. I'm liking what's going on between Ricochet and Nakamura. I'm liking what's going on between, they're still planting the seeds that Gable is going to go after that IC belt, which I like. I like the stuff that's going on with Jey Uso and Cody. It's kind of cooling off on me a little bit because it's like they won the titles and they lost the titles. And I'm trying to figure out, it's almost like they won the titles so they could take them off Sammy and Kevin so they could split up Sammy and Kevin. And then they just took the belts off of them and put them back on the Judgment Day. So, okay, so like if that's the point, okay. You know what I mean? Okay. But like I would have just and the reason they had to do that, if that's the case, is that there's no other real tag team that was built up to take it off of those guys. You know what I mean? Like well, actually no, wait, I'm sorry. Sammy and Kevin lost the belts to the Judgment Day, and the Judgment Day lost the belts to Cody and Jay. So I'm even more boggled by the fact that they lost them and then just put them right back on the Judgment Day. I don't know what that was all about, but whatever. Maybe they just wanted a moment for that pay-per-view. You know? Maybe they just want to sell some tickets, I guess. I'm not really too sure. But I don't know what was going on with that, but I really honestly think that like the Cody storyline has it like without Roman, there's not much for him to do. You know what I mean? Who's Cody even feuding with right now? Judgment Day still? With Jay? I mean, they lost their belts because of Jimmy. So does that mean like they're going to I don't know. The Jimmy and Jay, the Cody and Jay storyline is kind of like in flux right now. Like I don't know what they're looking to do, but whatever. I'm interested in seeing Sammy fight Drew McIntyre next week. I think that's going to be a good match. The match with Gunther and Bronson Reed was great. I'm upset that Johnny Gargano lost to Ludwig Kaiser. Ciampa's injured, so it's just like, you know, eventually what, like Ciampa's going to come back, and then what, they're going to beat Kaiser and Vinci, and then what? You know, like, are they going to go after the tag belts? Does that mean, like, anyone who goes after any of those belts is feuding with Judgment Day? You know what I mean? So, like, a DIY versus Judgment Day feud, like, I just don't see them pulling the trigger on that right now. So, I'm assuming it's going to take some time for Ciampa and Gargano to build up some Steve to challenge for tag titles, if indeed that's what they're even building them up for. You know, if not, they could be building them up for another split, and they're just going to feud in the mid-card. So I'm not really too sure. But I wasn't happy with that. I mean, they could have had Gargano fight everybody, but if it's the beginning stages of a story, I kind of have to see where it goes. You know what I mean? So let's see where it goes. It is apparently a different regime right now with Triple H solely running creative. So I'm expecting to see more like consistency in the storylines. I really like, and I may be in the minority on this one, but I think one of the greatest pieces of evidence in the way that Triple H is running things is, and I know this sounds weird, it's the way that Drew McIntyre has been delivering his promos as of late. They sound just so, he doesn't sound like a robot. He doesn't sound like it's pre-rehearsed. Like, he sounds like a guy who's speaking his mind and speaking from the heart and has legitimate reasons to feel the way that he's feeling. And I don't think that a lot of the reasons that he gives can be disputed. I mean, this guy was positioned to be the man. The pandemic happened. He was a champ in front of nobody. He ends up losing the belt. He finally gets a shot again to go for it in front of his countrymen, and he loses again due to the fact that the bloodline interfered. So, like, yeah, I would be holding a grudge too. Like, I don't give a fuck who is forgiving him. I'm going to be sitting there just like, fuck Jey Uso. I don't want any fucking part of him. And you know what? Why am I going to, like, Seth Rollins is the one with the problem with all these other guys. Like, why the hell am I going to go and defend him and stuff like that? Drew owes Seth nothing. Nothing. I just feel like, and I'm not backstage, so I'm just pulling this out of my ass, but I feel like Triple H is like, hey man, you got a lot of legitimate gripes, go out there and speak to them. They can't be disputed. Yeah. Be pissed that you were a champ during the pandemic. Yeah, be pissed that you lost to Roman in front of your countrymen because the bloodline screwed you over. And yeah, be pissed that all these people think that you're supposed to freaking just immediately just be backup for everybody. Drew is not anybody's mama or daddy. You know what I mean? Seth Rollins even said in the promo, like, I could take care of myself. So, like, why the fuck are you giving Drew any shit? You know what I mean? So you have a problem with Drew stepping into your business by preventing Damian Priest from cashing in, but you also have a problem with him not defending you against Damian Priest. I'm all for Drew McIntyre right now. I love what they're doing with his fucking character. If he ends up being this kind of tweener character, I'm all for it. And I really think that if that's what Triple H is doing, just letting guys like Drew like go out there and be themselves, I'm fucking loving this Drew McIntyre. I'm loving his promos. I'm into his character. I'm into the story. I'm into the feuds that he's getting into. Like, this is fucking great television. Great television. Gunther beating the shit out of everybody is great fucking television. You know what I mean? Now my worry is that they're not going to know what to do with the bloodline without belts. And my worry is, are they going to build up someone to be a legitimate threat to that people will accept the transition between Judgment Day having all the gold and somebody else? Because so far for the last several years, it's been factions that have been running the WWE. You know, the Bloodline was pretty much running both Raw and SmackDown because Roman and the Usos had all the belts except for the mid-card belts. Except for the IC title and the US title, the belts have been with the Bloodline. Now we have this kind of reversal where we have the women's world title being represented on Judgment Day, and then the Judgment Day having the undisputed tag belts, and also them having the North American champion. So, like, yeah, the Judgment Day are an overact. Yeah, it makes sense that most of them have all the belts. But, like, these baby faces don't have factions. So, like, there needs to be, like there's going to be a time now where factions aren't going to be running things. There's going to be all these solo babyface characters like a Cody, or I wouldn't even say Chad Gable is part of a faction, really. I would just say he's part of a tag team, but you know, Chad Gable winning the belt also. It's going to be a very big transitional period for WWE in terms of storytelling and presentation, but they're building up guys that could carry the torch. Like, Cody is primed for passing of the torch between Roman and him as a mega white meat babyface. Chad Gable is a very endearing underdog. He's primed to take it off of the foreign monster Gunther. You know, maybe DIY they position to be the guys to take the belts off of the Judgment Day. You know what I mean? They're very well positioned as an underdog tag team. You know, they're two cruiserweights going against two heavyweights, Finn Balor and Damian Priest. Like, that's a storyline could be made for that. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of potential in a lot of these WWE storylines. I like watching Raw on Mondays. I like watching SmackDown on Fridays. And I enjoy watching Dynamite on Wednesdays. I just still can't fucking get into NXT, man. I can't. I don't know what it is. I just fucking can't. It's just like, I just keep going back there thinking it's going to be like Black and Gold, and it's never going to be that way. So I still can't seem to wrap my arms and embrace around this new, I'll call it like NXT 3.0. You know, it's not Black and Gold. It's not 2.0. It's something else. It's something different. It's like NXT HBK version. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm not sure. But let's get on to the Dynamite review. Jay White facing Penta El Cero Miedo. Jay White's currently the number one contender to fight MJF for the world title. He's been carrying around that the Triple B for the last couple of weeks. Sting addresses the fans on Dynamite. We already talked about this earlier, about him addressing his retirement. Emi Sakura is going to take on Hikaru Shida in a women's world title eliminator match. If Emi wins, she gets a title shot. Kenny Omega is going to be fighting Kyle Fletcher. Adam Copeland issues a rebuttal to Christian Cage. Jim Ross conducts an interview with Nick Wayne and Nick Wayne's mom. Timeless Toni Storm debuts her newest blockbuster film. And I think that was pretty much it. So, show opened up with Jay White defeating Penta in a great one-on-one match. Listen, there was Jay White was destined to win. We all knew this. There was no way that Penta was going to win. And they were going to protect Penta by having some interference between Bullet Club Gold and Penta. So like we all saw that happening. Bullet Club Gold, hey man, like people, they they're over. You know what I mean? Like, people are loving Bullet Club Gold. I think Jay White has been great. His matches have been awesome. I think the feud that he had with FTR was a big plus for him. That also helped build up Juice, who now Juice is getting his shot at MGF. And Juice is kind of the guy who takes the pins in Bullet Club Gold if it's not the guns. But Juice is a great character, and he's good on the mic, and there's no reason to not have Juice Robinson on television. Like, the guy is definitely like an entertaining cat. They kind of got like Bullet Club acting like fucking, like, they just always like laughing at people getting the shit kicked out of them. It's kind of cool. Like, they're just like a faction of jerks, and I like it. Switchblade wins. After the match, Jay White basically cut a promo saying like MJF sucks and he has no friends and he can't even get people to join him join him to help him fight Bullet Club. Adam Cole's gone. He has no friends, nobody. So they mentioned that already. My hope is that MJF aligns himself with the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass. I feel like the crowd could definitely get behind like Max Caster, like really trying to be MJF's friend, and then it finally happening, and then him scissoring Max and shit like that. I think that would actually be pretty funny. And that's something that they could get MJF involved in while Adam Cole's on the shelf. Adam Cole's gonna be gone for like a fucking long time. All right, he obliterated that ankle, and he has to have surgery, and then he has to have PT. Like, Adam Cole's gonna be gone for a fucking while. We probably won't see him until, I would say, best case scenario, Double or Nothing. Worst case scenario, like All Out or Full Gear, because he's definitely not gonna make it to All In. I'd be shocked if he did. This guy ain't no Aaron Rodgers. He ain't gonna be coming back after like a fucking like walking without crutches after a month, 4 weeks after Achilles surgery. Unreal. So, Renee Paquette's backstage with MJF. He says that he could have ran out there and gotten his ass handed to him, but that's what a dumb good guy would do. He's a scumbag. MJF hopes that Juice Robinson wins tonight. So it's going to be the left hand of God versus the right hand of the devil. The Acclaimed and Daddy Ass interrupt. A Mask Caster says that he can accept the challenge. And they'll join up with him, and then when they win, they could scissor, and then MJF declined, so Cax is like, listen, I'll enter the Battle Royal tonight, I'll beat Juice, I'll beat you, and then you have to put a ring on it. So I think it's a funny storyline. I'm really digging it. I'm curious as to see where this is gonna go. I'm hoping it's going where I think it's going. But MJF stored off, and then Daddy Ass is like, man, that guy is a total scumbag. And then Max is like, yeah, but he's my scumbag. I'm liking this. I'm liking this story. I'm liking where it's going. I think it's funny. And if they could put together a good storyline that leads up to everyone wanting Max to scissor, and then they actually have a match where they beat Bullet Club Gold, and it's a good match, I'm into that. Like, I think that's a worthwhile story to tell. Hikaru Shida defeats Emi Sakura. Not gonna lie, like, part of it was under commercial, and I honestly couldn't give a shit about this match. I'm really sorry about that. It was an okay match. I'm starting to watch a little bit of Stardom now, and I'm just loving how these chicks move so much more faster than the women in AEW, and they hit a lot harder. Like, I'm definitely digging Stardom. I'm getting into it like a little bit more and more, and I just kind of expected more out of these two. I mean, I know it's like Master and Apprentice kind of deal, but like, they fought together before with really no fanfare, and they're fighting together again with even less fanfare. Like, the way that these women's matches are being booked and promoted, like, why should I care? Why should I care? Technically, wrestlers like Hikaru Shida and Emi Sakura should get me excited because they're two talented women's wrestlers. But I see this match, and part of it's in a commercial break. It's a title eliminator match, which I know they're not going to have any. I've never seen a champion lose a title eliminator. I mean, if it's happened, it's probably had to have happened once, maybe twice, but not enough times that I can remember who it was, when, and why. But, like, it just wasn't, like, get me to care about these matches by building them somewhat, you know what I mean? Like right now, like, okay, like now they took the belt off of Saraya. It has Hikaru Shida. To me, quite honestly, I feel like they're just playing I feel like they're treading water until Jamie Hayter comes back. That's what I think. And where the heck Jamie Hayter's been? God, I miss Jamie Hayter. I really do. She was the best women's wrestler they had. And, like, she's gone. She's been gone for almost a year. Like, ugh. I just miss her. I love her so much. Renee Paquette sits backstage with Adam Copeland. Says things haven't been going smoothly since he showed up in AEW. He doesn't understand why. He said the whole reason to come here was to end his career teaming with Christian Cage. He thought he was on board, but when it came down to brass tacks, it looks like Christian Cage didn't want to be a part of this tag team at all. Coppola talked about how they've been friends for 40 years. They became friends because of their love for pro wrestling. They both wrote essays to try and win free wrestling training. But Adam sent in the letter, but Christian didn't. He got the job before he got a job in wrestling before Christian did. And ever since then, it's always been Adam and Jay or Edge or E and C, Edge and Christian. Renee asked Edge if this jealousy is a little surprising from Cage at this point in their careers. Adam says that he doesn't want to take the TNT title or a spotlight, but he knows eventually that Christian's eventually going to come crashing to the ground. So it looks like they probably won't do like an Edge versus, an Adam versus Christian match. It looks like they're just going to kind of hold off for when Christian's run kind of comes to an end, where they kind of like stop giving him that push and they transfer that belt onto somebody different. And then I'm assuming then it's only a matter of time before those two team up and they start making a run for the tag belts, and we start seeing some matches like Edge and Christian versus the Bucks and Edge and Christian versus FTR. It's already been reported that FTR is trademarking rated FTR, so that's gonna happen. So this right now, like, they want to have Edge on TV. They're hoping that he brings more eyes to the product. They really can't have him wrestle every week because then the allure is going to be gone. So like, he's kind of in this holding period also until they kind of figure out a way to take the belt off of Christian Cage, put over someone else that it makes it work, because the TNT title it's been through a lot, people. It's been through a lot, and it's finally gotten the shine that it deserves with what's been going on with Christian and his awesome run right now. So you really want to make sure that they can hand this belt off to someone who could do the TNT title well, and they have good stories and good things booked for him. Just like what they were doing with Orange Cassidy. I'm not sure what they're doing with him now that there was a little bit of hot potato with that international belt because Moxley got injured. So, like, I'm not really sure what's going to be going on with the international title now anyways, because Orange Cassidy's pretty much defended against everyone that there is. So, like, unless they're going to do a new spin on this title run by possibly turning him heel or doing something different, like, even that belt's a little bit in jeopardy, even though it's with Orange Cassidy. You know what I mean? So, like, that's the thing that's going on with AEW right now. I feel like a lot of guys are hitting it hot, and there's not, and shockingly enough, there's almost not enough titles to go around. Now, I say that, and I want you guys to take that with a grain of salt, because, like, for example, like, Swerve needs a belt. He's mentioned the TNT title. He's mentioned the AEW World title. Like, these are belts being held by guys who are super over as champions, MJF and Christian Cage. I don't understand why they just don't have Swerve go after the international belt. Orange Cassidy doesn't need it anymore. Some of the best matches that Orange Cassidy had for that belt were with Swerve. I just think Swerve needs a belt. He needs to go on a good run. We need to see how gold fits on him and how he carries himself as a champion, because I do think that he is going to be the first black AEW world champion. I honestly think so. And I think that it begins with him winning one of these, like, solo mid-card belts, either the TNT belt or the international belt. He's already been a tag champion. He needs that one other belt. And we see him on a good run and see what happens, you know? And then at that point, Darby should already be well into his world title run, And then you run back Swerve versus Darby, and Swerve beats Darby for the title. You know, I feel like that's written. MJF drops it to Darby, Darby drops it to Swerve. And then Swerve eventually, maybe fucking Swerve drops it eventually to Keith fucking Lee. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, what the fuck have they been doing with Keith Lee lately? And we all know that Keith Lee could be a solid world champion. He was like that in NXT. He held on to, he was a great world champion. I know that a lot of people, say what you will about Karrion Kross, but I thought like him versus Karrion Kross was like one of the more worthwhile feuds that Keith Lee had, because they built up Karrion to be a legitimate threat for Keith Lee, and they built up Keith Lee to be fucking unstoppable, fucking limitless Keith Lee. So, there's a lot that could be done in this whole AEW title picture, and there's a lot of guys, and say what you will about AEW, but they are building up guys that could be legitimate title holders right now. And I just think that the wheels need to churn a little bit more, and those storylines start to progress. Wardlow came out, he beat Dolph Ziggler's brother, showed that he had MJF written on his straps, knocked over Tony Schiavone, and walked off. Wardlow needs to go to WWE. I think Wardlow would be very well trained, and they'll teach him how to do promos, and he could work the WWE style better, and they do really good with, they book a lot of monsters there, and I think Wardlow is a monster, and I feel like he has a lot of upside, and I think that they should take him. And I wouldn't be surprised if Wardlow went into NXT, and they built him like a Braun Breaker-esque kind of character, you know what I mean? I honestly think Wardlow needs to go to WWE and NXT, honestly, because they're just not doing right by him right now. I mean, yeah, he's eventually going to have a match with MJF. Remember, he beat the fucking shit out of MJF. So I think if they really are going to go that way and do a feud with him and MJF, then it's do or die for Wardlow. If he's not over at the end of that feud, if I were him, I'd run out my contract and try my luck with WWE. Renee Paquette is backstage with Kenny Omega. He talks about his win-loss record. Omega's lost a lot this year. He thanks Kyle Fletcher for challenging him. And Omega states that once he beats Fletcher, he's going to go after the Don Callis family. And then once he's done with them, maybe it's time to go back for the world title. And then MJF shows up. MJF walks in. He goes, "Hey, listen, I've been a massive fan. I want to shake your hand. Respect." He shakes his hand, goes in closer, goes up to his ear, and goes, "13 days, bitch." That's a reference to MJF getting close to being the longest reigning AEW world champion, and the guy who currently holds that record is Kenny fucking Omega. So I would like to see. He's gonna break that record before he ends up fighting Omega, definitely, because because Full Gear is in more than 13 days. So when he walks out of Full Gear, he'll be the longest reigning AEW world champion. So I guess there's that. But that's a point of contention in that feud if they ever end up doing it. And MJF versus Kenny Omega would be a fucking incredible match. A match of the year contender, 100%. MJF is a fantastic professional wrestler, and Kenny Omega is one of the best of all time. So yeah, I'm definitely down for that. They did the whole, I'm not really going to go through this whole thing with Roderick Strong and MJF, but it's more the same, and it's there you go. But I think finally, but the one thing to make note is Adam Cole finally leaves to go get surgery. Schiavone reluctantly introduces the Don Callis family. Callis said someone did the unthinkable and demolished Chris Jericho. That was Will Hobbs. Will Hobbs said February the 22nd, 1998 was supposed to be the greatest day of his life. He was going to meet Chris Jericho. His grandmother got him front row tickets. Jericho told her to shut up and told Hobbs to sit down. Hobbs swore that day that he was going to look Jericho in the eye and he was going to hurt Jericho over and over again. They showed clips of him just hitting repeated spine busters over and over again and fucking murdering Chris Jericho. Don Callis says that in his family he allows guys to be killing machines. He's going to unleash Hobb on All Elite Wrestling. They've won every match as a family except when Sammy Guevara was concussed. So he had to get a scab that failed in Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher comes out and gets in Callis' face, said he's basically going to beat Kenny Omega and prove himself. This leads to Kenny Omega coming out and that match beginning. Great match. Kyle Fletcher's a solid wrestler. There's a reason why, Aussie Open were positioned to be tag team champions because Him and Mark Davis are fantastic professional wrestlers as a team and as singles. So, very, I'm excited that Kyle Fletcher's getting the rub. He's gonna have to be working on his own for a while. I mean, listen, AEW was bolstering this like amazing tag team division, but look how much of that tag team division is fucking injured. And it's a lot of the young tag teams that they signed. Private Party haven't been a tag team in forever. In maybe legit years. It's been years since we've seen Private Party as a tag team. It's been years since we've seen Top Flight as a tag team. Like these young tag teams are getting fucking decimated. And I think if there's one thing to take note, and it's something that Rey Mysterio said on this podcast, and it was advice that he gave to El Hijo de Vikingo, and I'm pretty sure that was the same advice Jericho gave to Ospreay. Slow down. Less is more. Save these crazy moves for big build and big reactions. Don't be dumping them out every week for free on television. Because look what happened to Dante Martin. He fucking destroyed his leg. It was the same thing that happened with Darius. Darius was destroying his leg. It was the same thing that was happening to Private Party. These guys were killing themselves on regular shows. Like these guys, like these kids, like they're definitely like, listen, like, yes, it builds a great reaction. And yes, you get this rep like Darby has to just for this reckless abandon, but there's not a lot of longevity in that. Like Darby's very lucky that he's not dead or seriously injured. You know what I mean? So, it is what it is. But Omega wins, beats Kyle Fletcher in a great one-on-one singles match. Hits an amazing fucking V-trigger. These guys were crisscrossing across the ring, and he just turned him inside out with that V-trigger. It was fantastic. They showed a vignette for Danhausen. Honestly, I don't know why it's on Dynamite. Out of all the things to be on, to be on Dynamite, they had like the Danhausen promo. Like I like Danhausen, I think he's funny, but you want to know what really should be on Dynamite? The feuds and the promos that are going on between Santana and Ortiz. Why these guys are being relegated to Rampage when you're trying to build them up as legit singles wrestlers? Like you don't build up a legit singles wrestler on Rampage, guys. You just don't do it. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Someone send Tony a text message. You want people to be taken seriously, you don't build them on Rampage. You find television time for them on Collision or on Dynamite. That's where that feud needs to be, because it is not where it belongs right now. Lance Archer comes and he defeats Barrett Brown. We haven't seen Lance Archer in a while. Again, like, this is another example of just, like, big guys being just, like, not being utilized properly in AEW. They should come out with a super heavyweight title. They should make it the meat title. I don't know why they haven't done that. They need to do it because guys like Wardlow and Powerhouse Hobbs and Lance Archer and all these other guys, like, they need something to do because all they are just underdog foils for little guys. And I just want better for them. Or they should all go to WWE. They do the world premiere of Swerve Strickland's remix for his song is going to be on YouTube on Friday. And it looks like Strickland might be going after the Young Bucks to hurt Hangman for costing him that title shot. Sting comes out. You know, we talked about this earlier in the podcast. Last match is going to be at Revolution, so it looks like it's going to be game over for Sting. Really sad about that, but like I said, the man had an amazing career. I hope he has a great send-off. RJ City does another silent film with Tony Storm during the commercial break. Jim Ross is backstage with Nick Wayne and his mom. Nick Wayne's mom was basically just questioning as to why Nick Wayne did it. He basically said he was sick of living in Darby's shadow and everyone was giving Darby props, but not him. And, that was it. And, like, I hate you and I don't want you to be my mom. I found a new father now. It's going to be Christian. Christian comes up, puts his hand on Nick Wayne. They walk out. All of a sudden you hear all this fighting. You open up the door. Christian's laid out. It's Darby. He's beating the shit out of Nick Wayne. He shatters his tooth. Nick Wayne's bleeding all over the place. Luchasaurus comes out to attack Darby. Sting comes out to help out Darby. They clear out the ring. So definitely stuff that's going on with Sting and Darby and Luchasaurus and Christian and Nick Wayne is not over. Juice Robinson wins the the main event was the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal. Juice Robinson wins. He eliminates Max Caster at the end. MJF got his belt back. Did they take it from him at the end of the show? MJF ended up getting goaded out to attack Jay White. Juice Robinson, that distracts Max Caster, which allows him to knock out, which allows Juice to knock out Max with that cheap TJ Maxx ring. Knocks him out, throws him over. The rest of Bullet Club jumps MJF. So MJF, despite his best efforts, gets jumped anyways by Bullet Club. Jay White's still holding on to the Triple B, and that's how the show ended. Let's go through the card for Rampage, and I'm going to call it a wrap for tonight. Rampage, Rocky Romero versus Mystico. Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta will be in action. Sky Blue takes on Ruby Soho. Brother Zay, Kip Sabian, and John Silver will fight in a three-way, and the winner faces Orange Cassidy for the international title at Battle of the Belts 8. Collision, Ricky Starks and Big Bill defend their titles against Claudio and Wheeler. Miro versus Action Andretti. Battle of the Belts is going to be the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass defend their trios belts against Daniel Garcia, Matt Menard, and Angela Parker. Chris Statlander defends the TBS title against Willow Nightingale, and Orange Cassidy will defend the international title against the winner of that Silver, Sabian, and Zay three-way. Dynamite next week, Tony Khan has a gift for Sting. Rob Van Dam and Hook will be in action, and MJF defends the Dynamite Diamond ring against Juice Robinson, which I can only assume is going to lead to MJF's first loss, with the Dynamite Diamond ring, or the Acclaim come and help him out. So I'm not sure how that's going to end. But that is a lineup for next week, and that is the end of tonight's show. Guys, I want to thank you all for joining for episode 91. I appreciate it. I will be back on Saturday. Obviously, I was not on for this past Saturday. I was at the Islanders game, seeing them win. I think 3-2 against Buffalo, so hooray for my Islanders. But yes, I will be on live after Collision, 10 p.m. this Saturday on the podcast. I want to thank you all for joining. Have a great night.